Professor Marcus Webb stared at the holographic display, his hands trembling. After 30 years of xenoarchaeology, he'd finally found it, proof that would shatter everything the galaxy believed about humanity's place in the cosmos. The artifact sat in the sterile containment field, a crystalline data core pulled from beneath the ice sheets of Kepler 442b. The planet had been abandoned for what dating suggested was over 2 million years, yet the technology inside still functioned. More impossibly, the genetic markers embedded in the core's biological components matched human DNA with 99.7% accuracy. "This can't be right," muttered his assistant, Lieutenant James Corvin, reviewing the data for the 5th time. "The Thalaxians, the Viridians, the Qurati, they all have fossil records going back 10 million years. Humans barely made it off Earth 300 years ago." Marcus knew what James meant. Every species humanity had encountered in their expansion across the stars had been older, wiser, more technologically advanced. Humanity had been the newcomers, the junior partners in a galactic community that had existed for eons. The Great Council on Nexus Prime had made that abundantly clear when they'd granted Earth provisional membership, emphasis on provisional. "Run the analysis again," Marcus ordered. "Cross-reference with every xenobiological database we have access to." 6 hours later, the results hadn't changed. The crystalline core contained what appeared to be a genetic repository, seeds, embryos, and complete genomes for thousands of species. Buried in the metadata were coordinates, thousands of star systems, each marked with dates that stretched back millions of years. Marcus pulled up the star charts and felt his breath catch. He recognized many of the systems. Thalaxia Prime. New Viridia. Qurath. The homeworlds of the galaxy's elder species. "Sir, you need to see this," James called from across the lab. He'd been examining the core's outer casing, where elegant script had been etched into the crystal. The translation algorithms had finally cracked it. Marcus read the words that appeared on the screen: "To those who come after, we planted the seeds across the void so that when the darkness came for us, life would endure. May you forge a better path than we did." The founders, last archive, Earth year 2,145,332 BCE. Founders, Marcus whispered. Not discoverers. Not colonizers. Founders. The implications crashed over him like a wave. Humanity hadn't been the newcomers at all. They were the descendants of the original spacefarers, the species that had seeded life across the galaxy before some cataclysm had brought them low, had forced them back to their cradle world, where they'd forgotten everything they'd once been. James looked pale. "If this gets out." "It has to get out," Marcus interrupted. "The Council has been treating Earth like primitive charity cases for 3 centuries. They've denied us access to jumpgate technology, restricted our settlement rights, kept us contained because they assumed we were too young, too dangerous." He gestured to the artifact. "This proves humans were traveling the stars before their ancestors even evolved." But even as conviction filled his voice, doubt gnawed at Marcus. The galaxy's political balance was delicate. What would the elder species do when they learned they weren't elder at all, that they were humanity's children, our deliberate creation? And more troubling still, what darkness had forced humanity to abandon the stars? The Grand Chamber of Nexus Prime had never been built for silence, yet complete quiet fell when Marcus finished his presentation. 300 delegates from across the galaxy stared at the holographic evidence floating before them, their various expressions of shock, disbelief, and anger needing no translation. Ambassador Thelkos of the Thalaxian Empire was the first to speak, his crystalline voice sharp as shattered glass. "Preposterous. Human desperation has led to an elaborate fraud. Our fossil records date back 9 million years," Marcus interrupted smoothly. "Yes, we know. We've read your archaeological surveys. But notice the absence of transitional forms in your earliest strata. Your species appears suddenly, fully formed, with brain structures that shouldn't have evolved naturally for such a large body size. The same pattern exists for every major species in this chamber. Ambassador Velcara of the Viridian Concordat rose on her 6 legs, her usually gentle demeanor replaced with barely contained fury. You're suggesting we're, what? Genetic constructs? Laboratory experiments? Not experiments, Marcus said carefully. Children. The genetic markers in the Kepler archive aren't random. Each species was tailored to its specific homeworld, atmospheric composition, gravity, radiation levels. Whoever created you wanted you to thrive. And you expect us to believe these mysterious benefactors were human? The Qerati envoy's telepathic voice dripped with skepticism, echoing in everyone's minds. The species that only achieved interstellar flight within our living memory. Marcus had anticipated this resistance. He activated the second set of holograms, data pulled from archaeological digs across 20 worlds, all carefully cross-referenced and dated. Look at the cultural artifacts. Buried on your worlds, beneath your oldest cities, we've found fragments. Art. Architecture. And when we analyzed them, the holograms shifted to show molecular breakdowns. The organic materials are all human in origin. Whoever lived on your worlds before you wasn't Galaxian or Viridian or Qerati. They were us. The chamber erupted. Accusations of falsification flew from a dozen species simultaneously. Several delegates walked out. Marcus stood at the podium, weathering the storm, until High Chancellor Mordak of the Draconian Assembly called for order with a sound like thunder. Enough. Mordak's reptilian features were unreadable, but his tone carried authority that silenced the room. Dr. Webb, your evidence is troubling. But let us assume, for argument's sake, it's genuine. What do you want? Marcus had prepared for this moment, rehearsed it 100 times. Recognition. For 3 centuries, the Council has restricted humanity's expansion, claiming we're too young, too reckless. But if we're the original spacefaring species? If, Mordak emphasized. A claim requiring extraordinary proof. Then let us provide it, Marcus replied. The Kepler archive contained coordinates for 23 more such facilities. Grant Earth access to joint investigation teams. Let us uncover the truth together. So you can plant more evidence. Velkos interjected. So we can learn what happened, Marcus countered. Because there's something else in the archive. Records of what the founders called the Burning. A galactic-scale catastrophe that nearly wiped out humanity and forced us back to our homeworld. He paused, meeting the gaze of as many delegates as possible. Whatever destroyed our ancestors' civilization, the records suggest it's cyclical. It could return. The silence that followed was different now, not hostile, but afraid. Chancellor Mordak's claws tapped against his throne. You're saying you've discovered both that humans seeded the galaxy and that some existential threat may be returning? I'm saying we need to find out what happened. Together. Marcus took a breath. Our ancestors planted you across the stars for a reason. Maybe it was to ensure that when the darkness came again, the galaxy wouldn't face it alone. 6 months after Marcus's testimony, the ISV Pathfinder hung in orbit above Epsilon Eridani 3, humanity's first joint expedition with the elder species. The crew was deliberately diverse. Marcus and James represented Earth, alongside Thelkos's daughter Kylene, a Viridian anthropologist named Dr. Horan, and Commander Rax of the Draconian military. The expedition had been the Council's compromise: prove the claims or face charges of historical fraud. Marcus understood the stakes. If they found nothing, humanity's credibility would be destroyed. If they found proof, the galaxy's entire social order would collapse. Atmospheric analysis complete, James announced from the science station. Breathable for most species, though the oxygen content is higher than standard. Consistent with Earth's atmosphere from the Cretaceous period. Marcus studied the planet below. Epsilon Eridani 3 wasn't listed in any colonial database. According to the Kepler archive, it had been designated Haven 7, one of humanity's earliest seed worlds. The coordinates indicated a research facility buried beneath what scanners showed as extensive ruins. "I'm detecting structures," Kylene reported, her crystalline hands dancing across her console. Her voice lacked the hostility her father had shown. She'd confessed to Marcus in private that she'd always felt her people's origin myths didn't quite fit their archaeological evidence. Large complex, approximately 5 kilometers across. Architecture is unusual. Not Thalaxian, but the proportions feel familiar. Because they're human-scaled, Rax growled. The massive Draconian had been skeptical from the start, but even he couldn't hide his growing unease. "If this is another fraud, human, you've committed significant resources to it." "If I wanted to commit fraud, Commander, I'd have picked somewhere easier to reach than a planet 40 light-years from any inhabited system." Marcus turned to the pilot. "Take us down." The landing site was eerie in its preserved state. Towers of what looked like grown metal, organic architecture, rose from the jungle floor, weathered by millions of years yet still standing. Vines covered everything, but through gaps in the vegetation, Marcus could see windows, doorways, landing platforms sized for human ships. The exploration team assembled at the Pathfinder's airlock. Each member carried scanning equipment and translators. Rax insisted on bringing weapons, despite Marcus's objections. "If your ancestors were so peaceful, why did their civilization fall?" Rax had asked. Marcus had no answer. They found the entrance to the underground facility behind a collapsed tower. The door, a massive circular seal covered in the same script they'd found on the Kepler archive, responded to James's attempts to interface with it. After several tense minutes, ancient mechanisms groaned to life. The seal rotated open, revealing stairs descending into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on as they descended, powered by systems that shouldn't have functioned after 2 million years. Dr. Horan's scanning equipment chirped constantly, recording everything. "The power source is something I've never seen," Horan mused, his viridian features expressing wonder. 0-point energy, but the efficiency is orders of magnitude beyond our technology. "Your technology," Kylene corrected quietly. "Perhaps not theirs." The stairs opened into a vast chamber. And there, preserved in stasis fields that still functioned, they found them, humans. Hundreds of humans, frozen in crystal-clear suspension, their faces peaceful. Each pod bore identification markers and dates. Marcus approached the nearest pod. The face inside could have belonged to his colleague back on Earth, same features, same basic structure. The date on the pod read 2,145,289 BCE. "They look just like you," Kylene whispered. "They look just like us," Marcus corrected, emotion tightening his throat. "Our ancestors." But it was Horan who made the most disturbing discovery. "Dr. Webb, you need to see this." Along the far wall, they found what appeared to be a genetic laboratory. And inside, in smaller stasis pods, were embryos. Dozens of species, carefully labeled and preserved. Marcus recognized some, early-stage Thalaxians, Viridians, Qerati. "This is impossible," Kylene breathed. "These are our people. Our children." "No," Marcus said gently. "These are the children your ancestors never got to raise." They found the logs in the central computer system. Video recordings of the facility's final days, preserved in a format that required modern quantum computing to decode. The expedition team watched in silence as the truth unfolded. The hologram flickered to life, showing a woman in her 40s, exhausted but determined. She wore a uniform Marcus didn't recognize, sleek, functional, bearing symbols that looked like precursors to every spacefaring insignia in the known galaxy. "This is Director Elena Vasquez, Haven 7 Facility, final log entry." Her voice carried the weight of someone who'd already accepted defeat. "The burning reached the Eridani sector 6 days ago. We've lost contact with all orbital stations. The sky is coming apart." She gestured off-screen, and the camera angle widened to show a large viewport. Through it, Marcus could see the stars, but they were wrong. They twisted and writhed, as if space itself was tearing. It started in the galactic core, just like the precursor warning said it would, Elena continued. We thought we had more time. We thought we decoded enough of their technology to stop it, or at least to survive it. We were wrong. She paused, composing herself. For the record, humanity's golden age lasted 12,000 years. We spread to 17,000 worlds. We built wonders. We made mistakes, God, did we make mistakes, but we also did something right. We created life. Real, thinking, feeling life. Species designed to thrive, to build their own civilizations, to maybe succeed where we failed. The hologram flickered as something struck the facility. Elena steadied herself. The Thalaxians on Kepler 62e should survive. Their star is far enough from the core. The Viridians on Gliese 667cc have good chances. The Quirati, she smiled sadly. The Quirati were always the most independent. They'll build something amazing, I think. Maybe something better than we did. Another impact, stronger this time. Alarms blared in the background. The embryos are in stasis. The genetic archives are secured. The facilities on each seed world have enough resources to last until the first generation reaches maturity. AI caretakers will raise them, teach them, help them build their civilizations. Elena looked directly at the camera. To whoever finds this, we're leaving you a gift and a burden. The gift is life, evolution, a chance to make your own path among the stars. The burden is knowing you're not the first. Knowing that something out there, the burning, the precursors, whatever caused this, is powerful enough to destroy a civilization that spanned galaxies. She glanced off-screen again. The burning is getting worse. It's not just destroying matter, it's erasing it. Quantum decay on a cosmic scale. We don't know how to stop it. We don't even fully understand what causes it. She took a shaky breath. We're sending the best of us back to Earth. A few thousand in each facility, in deep stasis. Maybe when the burning passes, they can rebuild. Maybe they'll remember what we were. But you, the species we created, you're our real legacy. Build. Learn. Grow. And if the burning comes back. She paused. Maybe together, you'll be strong enough to face it. The recording shifted to chaos. Explosions. Screaming. The facility shaking apart. The last image was Elena's face, determined even as the ceiling collapsed above her. Remember us. Remember what we tried to. The recording ended. The expedition team stood in silence. Kylene's crystalline form refracted the light oddly, creating rainbow patterns as she shuddered. Horan had collapsed into a sitting position, his Viridian legs unable to support him. Even Rax looked shaken, his scales pale. 2 million years, James finally said. They've been asleep for 2 million years. Marcus stared at the stasis pods containing his ancestors. Waiting for the galaxy to be safe again. The burning, Kylene whispered. Is it still out there? Marcus called up the astronomical data the facility's sensors had recorded. The readings were beyond anything modern science understood: quantum decay, dimensional rifts, stars simply ceasing to exist. And according to the timestamps, it had lasted for 3,000 years before finally subsiding. It ended, he said. Eventually. But Elena was right, we don't understand what caused it or if it could happen again. Dr. Horan found his voice. We need to wake them. Your ancestors. They might have answers. We can't, James replied, examining the stasis pod controls. The technology is too advanced. If we make a mistake, we could kill them. We'd need teams of specialists, years of study. Then we bring in the specialists, Rax interrupted. His voice carried an edge Marcus hadn't heard before. not hostility, but respect. These humans, your ancestors, Webb, they gave us life. Literally created us. If there's a chance they can help us understand the burning. We owe them, Kylene finished. We owe them everything. Marcus looked at the faces in the pods. So peaceful, unaware that the civilization they'd known was long dead, replaced by the children they'd created. We need to tell the council. All of it. They'll want to study them, Rax warned. Dissect their technology. Some species won't be pleased to learn they were engineered. Then they'll have to deal with it, Marcus said firmly. Because like it or not, we're all part of the same family. And families don't abandon each other. He turned back to the recording console, where thousands more logs waited to be decoded. Let's find out everything we can. The council needs to see all of it. The return to Nexus Prime was unlike Marcus's first visit. Then, he'd been met with skepticism and hostility. Now, the Pathfinder was escorted by ships from a dozen different species, all eager to hear what the expedition had found. The whole recording spread across the galactic network within hours of the council session. There was no stopping it, too many people had access, too many species demanded to know the truth about their origins. Within days, every inhabited world in known space was watching director Elena Vasquez's final message. The reactions were predictably chaotic. On Thalaxia Prime, riots broke out as religious fundamentalists clashed with those who embraced the new origin story. The crystalline temples that had taught of spontaneous divine creation for millions of years suddenly stood on shaky ground. Some Thalaxians threw themselves into existential crisis, others felt oddly liberated. We always knew the story didn't fit, Kylene told Marcus during one of their many debriefing sessions. Our earliest fossils appear too suddenly, too perfectly formed. The priests called it divine providence. Now we know it was something more tangible, but no less miraculous. The Viridians handled it better. Their culture had always celebrated adaptation and diversity. Learning they were deliberately designed to thrive on their world fit neatly into their existing philosophies. Dr. Horan returned home a hero, his footage of the embryo chambers broadcast across all Viridian networks. The Qurati, true to Elena's prediction, were the most philosophical about it. Their telepathic culture had long suspected deeper connections between species. The revelation that all spacefaring races shared a common creator, that humanity had literally thought them into existence, resonated with their collective consciousness. You dreamed us, the Qurati High Thought leader transmitted to Marcus during a private audience. And we became real. There is poetry in that. But not everyone was pleased. The Draconian Assembly split into factions. Commander Rax found himself defending humanity's ancestors against members of his own species who saw the revelation as an insult, a suggestion that Draconians weren't naturally evolved apex predators but rather designed creations. They're saying we're artificial, Rax growled during a secure calm with Marcus. That we're less real because humans made us. Are they less your parents because they chose to have you? Marcus countered. Elena and her people didn't create slaves or toys. They created thinking, feeling beings and gave them entire worlds. That's not diminishment, that's love. The council meetings became marathons as every species processed the implications. Ambassador Thelkos, his initial hostility transformed into grudging curiosity, led a faction pushing for immediate awakening of the humans in stasis. We need their knowledge, Thelkos argued. The burning could return. We must understand it. Others disagreed. We've built our own civilizations, argued the Zentari delegate, a species from the Outer Rim. We don't need our creator's permission to exist. No one's suggesting we do, Marcus replied calmly. He'd become the unofficial human representative, thrust into politics he'd never wanted. But there's still people. Still alive. We can't leave them in stasis forever just because their existence is inconvenient. It was Chancellor Mordak who finally proposed the solution. We establish a joint committee, representatives from each major species. We study the stasis technology carefully, safely. When we're certain we can revive them without causing harm, we do so. And then, he looked directly at Marcus. Then we have a conversation. As equals. As family. The vote was close, but it passed. The Awakening Committee was formed with Marcus as co-chair alongside Kylene. 12 species contributed their best scientists and physicians. The timeline was set for 2 years of careful study before the first revival attempts. But Marcus was troubled by something he'd found in the deeper archive files. Not all of Elena's recordings were about hope and legacy. Some spoke of warnings, of things the ancients had discovered about the burning that terrified them. He shared one such recording with James in private, in the Pathfinder's secure conference room. The precursors tried to warn us, Elena's hologram said. This recording clearly made weeks before her final message. She looked haunted. We found their archives in the galactic core. Millions of years old. They were like us, builders, explorers, creators. And the burning took them too. She pulled up astronomical charts that made no sense to Marcus's eyes. It's cyclical. 68 million years, give or take a few million. It starts in the core and spreads outward. No one knows why. The precursors theorized it was the galaxy itself, some kind of quantum immune response to too much organized matter, too much complexity. Elena's hands shook as she manipulated the data. They tried to stop it. Built machines the size of stars, attempted to reinforce the quantum foam of spacetime itself. They failed. All we found were their dead worlds and their warnings: leave. Scatter. Survive. She looked into the camera. We're following their advice. We're scattering our children across the galaxy. Maybe spread out enough, diluted enough, we won't trigger the next burning. Maybe. The recording cut off. James looked pale. When's the next cycle? Marcus had already done the math. Elena's people encountered the burning 2.1 million years ago. The precursors faced it 68 million years before that. If the pattern holds. We have 66 million years, James finished. Give or take. Or take, Marcus emphasized. The cycle isn't exact. It could be tomorrow. It could be 100 million years from now. He stood, pacing. This is what terrifies me about waking them. What if we bring them back just in time to watch everything end again? Then they face it with us, James said simply. Isn't that what Elena wanted? For her people and ours to face the darkness together? Marcus had no answer. But as he looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy his ancestors had seeded with life, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like a physical thing. The truth was out. Humanity were the elder species, the founders, the dreamers who'd given birth to galactic civilization. And somewhere in the future, near or far, the burning waited. The only question was, would they be ready? The awakening chamber on Haven 7 had been transformed over 18 months of careful preparation. What had been an ancient storage facility was now a state-of-the-art medical center, staffed by the galaxy's finest doctors and equipped with technology from a dozen species. Marcus stood beside the first revival pod, trying to control his racing heart. After all the delays, all the debates, they were finally doing it. Inside the pod, a man named David Chen, no, Marcus corrected himself, just David, one of Elena's research team, waited to be brought forward 2 million years. All systems nominal, announced Dr. Chiron, a Viridian physician who'd spent the last year studying human biology. Neural patterns are stabilizing. Cellular reconstruction is at 98% completion. Kylene monitored the quantum stasis field from her station. Temporal displacement syndrome should be minimal. We've followed the protocols from the medical database exactly. Then let's bring him home, Marcus said. The stasis field collapsed slowly, gracefully, allowing David's body to adjust to the passage from frozen time to flowing time. His chest began to rise and fall. His eyes moved beneath closed lids. And then, with a gasp, he was awake. For a moment, David simply breathed, his mind clearly struggling to process consciousness after such an impossible sleep. Then his eyes opened, dark brown, very human, and filled with confusion. His voice was rough, bemused. "Elena? Where's Elena?" Marcus stepped forward carefully, hands visible and non-threatening. "My name is Marcus Webb. You're safe. You're on Haven 7, and you've been in stasis for a very long time." "How long?" David tried to sit up, and several medical sensors immediately began chiming. "The burning, did we survive? Are the seed worlds safe?" "We survived," Marcus assured him. "All of us. But David, you need to prepare yourself. You've been asleep for 2 million years. The color drained from David's face. He looked at Marcus, then at the medical equipment, then at Kylene, and froze. "You're Thalaxian," he whispered, wonder replacing shock. "The embryos worked. You're real, you're grown, he laughed, a sound somewhere between joy and hysteria. "Elena's children. You're all Elena's children." "Not just Elena's," Kylene said gently, her crystalline voice soft. "Yours too. All of you. You gave us life." Over the next hours, Marcus explained everything. The rise of galactic civilization. The discovery of the archives. The proof of humanity's role as the founders. David listened with a mixture of pride, grief, and overwhelming loss. "Everyone I knew is dead," he said finally, stating the obvious truth they'd all been avoiding. "My family. Elena. Everyone." He looked at his hands, young, healthy, unchanged. "I'm a ghost from a dead world." "You're a link to our past," Marcus corrected. "And we need you. The burning, we don't understand it. We don't know if it's coming back." David's expression darkened. "It's coming back. Elena knew it. The precursors knew it. The galaxy has a cycle, and we're part of it." Over the following months, they revived 47 more humans from Haven 7. Each awakening was carefully managed, each ancient person given time to process the impossible transformation of the world they'd known. Some adapted quickly, fascinated by what their genetic children had built. Others struggled with depression and displacement. But slowly, a community formed. The ancients, as they came to be called, brought with them knowledge that had been lost for millennia. Not just technology, though their understanding of zero-point energy and quantum manipulation was centuries ahead of modern science, but philosophy, art, and wisdom earned through humanity's first golden age. David became their unofficial leader and primary liaison with the Council. His presentation to the assembled species was broadcast across the galaxy. "We made you because we were afraid," he told them honestly. "Not of you, but for you. We knew the burning was coming. We couldn't stop it, couldn't save ourselves, but we could save something. We could give life a chance to continue, to evolve, to maybe find answers we couldn't." He pulled up the precursor data, now fully translated and enhanced by ancient knowledge. The burning isn't random destruction. It's more like a reset. The galaxy generates entropy. Over millions of years, quantum complexity builds up. When it reaches a critical threshold, space-time itself collapses and rebuilds. Everything caught in the wave is erased. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. Ambassador Thelko spoke first, his crystalline form reflecting the horror they all felt. "You're saying the galaxy murders its own children?" "Periodically." "I'm saying the galaxy is a living system," David replied. "And like all living systems, it has maintenance cycles. We're just unfortunate enough to be conscious during one." "Can it be stopped?" Chancellor Mordak asked. "The precursors tried for 10,000 years. They failed." David paused. "But they were alone. You're not. We're not. Maybe that's the difference. It was Commander Rax who voiced what everyone was thinking. You want us to stop the burning. Together. I want us to try, David said. Because the alternative is waiting to die. And humanity, both ancient and modern, has never been good at that. The debate that followed consumed weeks. Some species wanted to flee, to scatter to distant galaxies before the next cycle began. Others wanted to dig in, to fortify and hide. But slowly, painfully, a consensus emerged. They would fight. Together. The Galactic Defense Initiative was formed with representatives from every major species. The ancients shared their technology freely. Modern engineers combined it with contemporary innovations. Galaxian crystalline computing merged with human quantum processors. Viridian biological systems enhanced draconian military hardware. And in the depths of space, construction began on the first of the lighthouse stations, massive quantum stabilizers designed to reinforce the fabric of reality itself. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the first completed station, David beside him. Below them, work crews from a dozen species labored together, building hope one piece at a time. Do you think it'll work? Marcus asked. David was quiet for a long moment. I think Elena would be proud, he finally said. Not because we might succeed, but because we're trying. Because all her children, genetic and spiritual, are working together. He smiled sadly. That's what she really wanted to save. Not technology or knowledge, but the possibility of cooperation. Then we'll give her that, Marcus promised. All of us. Together. 67 million years. That's how long the models predicted before the next burning cycle. But the models were wrong. The first signs appeared not at the galactic core but at the edge, a ripple in spacetime that shouldn't exist, quantum decay beginning in regions that should have been stable for eons. The lighthouse stations detected it immediately, their sensors screaming warnings across the galactic network. Marcus was in a council meeting when the alerts came through. The holographic display showed the spreading decay, and his blood ran cold. It was happening faster than predicted. Much faster. How long? Chancellor Mordak demanded, his draconian calm finally cracking. David, now the council's chief scientific advisor, pulled up the projections. 5 years. Maybe 6. The decay is exponential. Once it reaches the critical threshold. He didn't need to finish. The galaxy mobilized like never before. Every shipyard, every factory, every resource was directed toward a single goal, survival. The lighthouse network expanded frantically. 30 stations. 50. 100. Engineers pushed the limits of what was possible, combining ancient technology with modern innovation in ways that would have seemed like magic just years before. But it wasn't enough. The simulations were clear. The lighthouse stations could slow the burning, maybe even stop it in localized regions, but not across the entire galaxy. They needed something more. It was Kylene who found it, buried in the precursor archives. They didn't fail because their technology was inadequate, she announced at an emergency council session. They failed because they tried to stop the burning. We need to guide it. Guide quantum decay? Velkos asked skeptically. That's like guiding an avalanche. No, David said slowly, understanding dawning. It's like channeling a river. The precursors tried to build a dam. We need to build locks, control the flow, direct the decay away from inhabited space. The concept was insane. It would require repositioning the lighthouse stations into a massive network that spanned the galactic core. It would require evacuating billions from the inner sectors. And it would require something no species had ever attempted, synchronized quantum manipulation on a galactic scale. If we fail, we accelerate the burning, Rax pointed out. We could kill everyone faster. If we do nothing, we definitely die, Marcus countered. Slowly or quickly, is that really the choice we want to make? The vote was unanimous. Operation Exodus began. The evacuation was a logistical nightmare. Billions of beings fleeing the inner galaxy, their worlds about to be sacrificed to save the rest. There were no riots, no panic, instead, a grim determination. Species that had been rivals for millions of years worked together, sharing ships, resources, refugee stations. Marcus coordinated from Haven 7, which had become the de facto capital of the combined effort. David worked alongside him, translating ancient protocols and adapting them to modern systems. Kylene managed the Lighthouse network, her Thalaxian mind perfectly suited to the complex quantum calculations required. 3 years into the project, the burning reached the inner sectors. Marcus watched through long-range sensors as worlds he'd visited were erased from existence, not destroyed, but unmade, as if they'd never existed. The quantum decay spread like a wave, consuming stars, planets, entire civilizations' histories. "We're out of time," David said, his voice hollow. "We need to activate the guidance network now." "Not all the stations are in position," Kylene protested. "We need at least 3 more months." "We don't have 3 months," Marcus interrupted, staring at the projections. "If we wait, the decay reaches the outer sectors before we can redirect it. We activate now with what we have, or we don't activate at all." The council convened in emergency session. The debate lasted 6 minutes, a record. The authorization came through: activate the guidance network. Across the galaxy, 847 lighthouse stations powered up simultaneously. Each one a marvel of combined technology: ancient human quantum cores, Thalaxian crystalline processors, Viridian biological neural networks, draconian military-grade shielding. The power requirements were astronomical. Entire stars were tapped, their energy channeled through quantum conduits. Marcus felt the activation through the station's hull, a deep vibration that resonated in his bones. On the holographic display, the lighthouse network came alive, each station a point of light in the darkness. Together, they formed a pattern, a web of quantum force that reached toward the approaching burning. "Contact in 30 seconds, Kylene announced, her voice tight with tension. The burning hit the network like a tsunami hitting a seawall. For a moment, Marcus thought they'd failed, the quantum decay simply rolled over the outer stations, consuming them. But then the pattern held. The network flexed, absorbed the impact, and began to redirect the flow. "It's working," David breathed. "By all the stars, it's actually working." But the cost was immediate and brutal. 12 stations failed in the first hour, their crews lost as the quantum fields collapsed. 20 more followed. The remaining stations compensated, drawing more power, pushing their systems beyond safe limits. On the command deck, alarms screamed. "We're losing the southern quadrant," a QRT operator transmitted telepathically. "The decay is breaking through. Reroute power from sectors 9 through 12, Marcus ordered. Strengthen the containment field. That'll leave the eastern edge vulnerable," Rax growled from his tactical station. "One crisis at a time, Commander." The battle, if you could call it that, lasted 3 days. 3 days of constant crisis management, of rerouting power, of watching stations fail and crews die. 3 days of the galaxy's greatest minds working in perfect synchronization, species that had been strangers 3 years ago now operating as one organism. And slowly, impossibly, the burning began to turn. The quantum decay didn't stop, couldn't stop, it was a fundamental force of nature. But the guidance network directed it, channeled it away from the inhabited sectors and into the empty void between galactic arms. Like water flowing around a stone, the burning followed the path of least resistance, the path the lighthouse network created for it. On the 4th day, the crisis passed. The decay wave moved beyond the guidance network's range, spiraling out into intergalactic space where nothing lived. The galaxy, or at least the parts that housed the species they'd saved, remained intact. The silence on the command deck was deafening. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Within seconds, the entire station erupted in cheers. Different species, different languages, all expressing the same thing: relief, joy, triumph. Marcus found David standing at the observation window, tears streaming down his face. Elena saw this. David said quietly. Not the burning, not the battle. But this, all of us, together. All her children, saving each other. He turned to Marcus. We didn't just survive. We proved her right. We proved that cooperation works, that diversity makes us stronger, that together we can face anything. Marcus put a hand on the ancient's shoulder. She'd be proud of you. All of you. She'd be proud of all of us, David corrected. Ancient and modern, human and Thalaxian and Viridian and everyone else. We're all founders now. The aftermath took years to process. The inner sectors would need to be resettled, if they could be. The quantum scars from the burning would take millennia to heal. But the galaxy had survived. More than survived, it had united. The Council, meeting in the rebuilt Grand Chamber, formally recognized Earth's position as a founding member. Not because humans had created the other species, that was history, interesting but ultimately irrelevant to the present, but because humanity, both ancient and modern, had stood with everyone else when it mattered most. We propose a new designation, Chancellor Mordak announced. Not elder species and junior species. Not founders and founded. Simply, family. The galactic family. The vote was unanimous. Marcus stood in the crowd of delegates, watching history unfold, and thought about the journey that had brought them here. A single archaeological dig. A crystalline data core. The truth about humanity's past, revealed. And from that truth, something greater, a future built together. Beside him, Kylene's crystalline form refracted the light from the chamber's many viewports. What will you do now, Dr. Webb? You've rewritten galactic history, survived the burning, and united the species. What's left? Marcus smiled. Find out what the precursors knew. Find out if we can make the galaxy safer for the next cycle. And maybe, he looked around at the assembled species, at the diversity of life that his ancestors had dreamed into existence, maybe teach the next generation what we learned. That we're stronger together. That family doesn't end at genetic boundaries. That being created doesn't make you less real, it makes you loved. Sounds like a lot of work, Kylene observed. The best work always is, Marcus replied. Above them, through the transparent dome of the Grand Chamber, the stars shone bright and steady. The galaxy lived. The burning had passed. And somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, the lighthouse stations kept watch, maintained by crews from a dozen species, a monument to what could be achieved when the galaxy's children remembered they were family. The ancients, the humans from Earth's past, gradually integrated into modern society. Some became teachers, sharing knowledge from humanity's first golden age. Others became explorers, eager to see what their genetic children had built. David established the Institute for Galactic Studies, dedicated to understanding the burning cycles and preventing them. And in the deepest archives of Haven 7, carefully preserved, Elena Vasquez's final message continued to play for new generations. Her words echoed across time: build, learn, grow. And if the burning comes back, face it together. They had faced it. They had survived. And they had done it as she'd hoped, as family. Marcus visited the revival chambers one last time before leaving Haven 7. Thousands of pods remained, thousands more ancients waiting to be awakened when the galaxy was ready. He placed his hand on one pod, feeling the cool crystal under his palm. Thank you, he whispered. For dreaming us. For saving us. For believing we could be better. The galaxy's future stretched ahead, uncertain but bright. The burning would return, in 60 million years, or perhaps sooner. But when it did, they would be ready. Not as separate species competing for survival, but as one family, united by common purpose and uncommon courage. Humans weren't just the original elder species. They were the beginning of something greater, a galactic civilization built on cooperation, maintained by diversity, and strengthened by the recognition that every species, every person, every voice mattered. The stars shone on. The family endured. And in the vast laboratory of space, life continued its greatest experiment, the experiment of consciousness, cooperation, and hope. The experiment that Elena Vasquez and her generation had started 2 million years ago, and that every species in the galaxy now carried forward together. The end.